Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to episode 7 of Sex Work with the Butterfly Princess and Amy Taylor. For this episode, Amy and I are going to be discussing media representations of sex work in the media. So we're going to be critiquing how sex workers in sex work are portrayed in media and popular culture, and the impact these representations have on public perception and policy. So just to start off, um, so I'm going to pass you on to Amy now to tell you a bit about the media representation. So hi Amy, thank you for joining me again today for episode
Beautiful
7 of
woman.
Hi.
Hey, Bridget, it's so good to be back here. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. So, media representations of sex workers in the media, that sort of covers a wide range of things. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so media plays a powerful role in all of our lives. It shapes public perception, and as you said, it ends up indirectly shaping policy regarding our work and probably that of everyone else. So there have been a lot of portrayals of our work that are pretty stereotypical and pretty stigmatizing. If you watch news articles about sex workers, they will invariably choose a stock photo of like a streetwalker with torn fishnets and a pair of high heels leaning up against a car in a bad neighborhood, and as if that's the only thing, and as if that's inherently always bad, which is a matter of opinion. So we don't see an embracing of diverse or accurate or humanizing narratives. A friend of mine joked once, she's like, a brothel is a group of three women in sweatpants living in an apartment and answering email all day long. Like most brothel workers do more laundry than anything else. They wash a lot of towels and sheets. And they take care of their kids and they go to whole grocery stores and they do yoga and all the normal things. We don't see enough of that. And what we'd like is to see the media create a more understanding nature of the people involved in this work.
So, we'll now move on to talk about some of the common representations of, sex workers in the media. So, one of them is the victim. How are they portrayed in the media, and what's the reality?
Yeah, so I get that a lot where people just love to feel real sorry for me. And sure, sex work, my career caused harm. A lot of people's careers have problems and also great things. So yeah, you get that it's that we're victims of circumstance, we're forced into the trade through coercion or trafficking or economic desperation, as if economic desperation doesn't force everyone into their job because yay, we all need money. And that does invoke sympathy, sure, but it also reinforces this idea that our work is always exploitative and always degrading, which is not true. It is not always those things. And it supports policies that are focused on sort of rescuing us and rehabilitating us, that we don't know our own minds, rather than recognizing our work as a legitimate form of labor that's been always part of the fabric of humanity.
And another sort of how the media represents sex workers is for glamorous escort. Now, this has been portrayed in many media representations. The thing that comes to mind is a TV series called The Secret Diary of a Call Girl, which stars the British actress Billie Piper as Belle de Jour. Now, she's sort of a very glamorous sex work. She has these sort of upper-ended clients, and she gets to go on these glamorous events and weekends away.
Yes, right. That show is very popular. We've all seen it. She's great. But she's sort of less likable. I get that one a lot. And we do those things. We do go on private jets and to incredible places with very successful men. That is part of the work for the high-end escort. It's true. Um, But yeah, that there was a famous movie in America in the 1990s, probably before you were born, called Pretty Woman, which some people claim overly glamorized it. And the book inspiration for that movie, the ending was much darker and much truer to the reality of a lot of sex workers. So there was debate on whether it promoted or made people think that escorting was always so great when it's not always. So our work is sometimes idealized and focuses a lot on the money and the glamour because people are obsessed with that. And that is a good challenge to the victim narrative, but it often, on the contrary, glosses over the risks and the realities of our work. The problem, of course, is that it can create unrealistic expectations of people that would like to enter the job. I get emails every single day from young people who want to enter the job and be like me. And the problem is that they only, they only see the positive parts of the work. They don't see the negative. And I would not recommend they do so. We've talked about that. The work is too hard. And then it, glamorizing the high-end escort ignores the reality of those in less privileged positions in our industry. Most are not high-end. They are not on private jets getting whisked away. For most people, it is simply a job. The income is very average. And it's important to be true and remember that not everybody's in a penthouse suite with a billionaire.
And another media representation of the sex worker is the criminal. Now, that is often portrayed a lot in, Victorian style TV shows and films, the very Dickensian type things. If you've ever seen the Les Miserables musical where they have the sex workers and, Jean Javert is coming along trying to arrest them and things like that. So there's been like that where you see the scene is the criminal, but obviously that isn't always the case because in some countries it's illegal, like we've discussed, and in others it's more legal, like because we've got more like the Nugget model and stuff like that.
Yeah. So even where it's criminalized, those are bad and incorrect laws. The state doesn't own your body. The state doesn't have a right to be in your bedroom. I don't believe that the state ever, anywhere, has a right to tell people who and when they can have sex with another consenting adult. If it's not rape and it's not coercion, then it's not a crime. So that said, the state sometimes tries to exert control over people's bodies and they still try to criminalize consenting adults. And we all know that's a failure. In the effort to paint sex workers in a negative light, some countries love to say that it's tied to drugs. Well, so are other jobs. I live in Manhattan. Do you know how many finance people do cocaine? And some even sell it to offset their habit. So drugs exist in every industry. Drugs are everywhere, sadly. It's often, sex workers are often called scammers and engaging in other legal activities. Now, there are scammers there, but they're not sex workers. There are people online pretending to be sex workers and scamming deposits from clients or engaging in blackmail of men who surf sex work websites. But those are not actual sex workers. Those are scammers, and that's their business. And that's so unfortunately, when they call actual sex workers criminals, that leads to social exclusion and marginalization, stigmatization, all the other things. It is a justification for very harsh legal measures that totally fail to address the root cause, which is poverty, of why people may turn to this work. And it does nothing to help the weakest among us. When they arrest clients and shame them and put their picture in the paper, it does nothing to stop those men from seeing escorts, sex workers, or strippers, or whatever they're doing. It doesn't rehabilitate anybody. It's driven by a punitive desire to punish people whose choices some people dislike. That's all it is. And it does nothing to make society better.
Another representation in the media is the empowered work, obviously. You know, take for example Pretty Woman, where Julia Roberts sort of falls in love with Richard Gere, who was her client, but then she's sort of rescued by him, and that's a happy ending. But in reality, sex work isn't an all empowered job, because some people maybe thought they have no choice but to go into the sex work industry, to pay for college or bills, and sometimes, as we've discussed, they have like really awful pimps or madams who make them do things that they don't want to do, or certain clients who may want them to do things but they don't want them to do. So it's not all arts and fairies sort of thing.
Absolutely, you're correct. It's complex, like many other jobs. There are labor abuses in agriculture workers, home care workers, there's trafficking in other industries. Yes, that's true. And the happy hooker, or not always a hooker, stripper, OnlyFans, porn star, phone sex, all sex workers under the umbrella of sex work. Saying that we're all empowered is not true. There are people who are in this job that are miserable and would like to do other things, just as the case is any other job. So it is better than saying we're all victims, but it sometimes fails, like you said, to fully address the complexities and all the bad actors that do exist in this world. So it's complicated.
And so we've talked about these sort of common representations in the media of sex work. Obviously, that has a profound effect on how the public views sex workers, because what they see in the newspapers, TV, film. And so, like, how can sort of what are sort of like the impact on public perception? The first one is stigma and discrimination.
Yeah, like you talked about, when the media contributes to our stigmatization, either portraying us simultaneously as a victim and a villain. Every single day on the internet, people say that I am an abuse victim and that I'm also this evil Jezebel. Dude, pick one. And so when the media or people do that, that contributes to harm in our lives. I've lost housing. I've lost healthcare. I've lost employment opportunities, friendships, neighbors who refused to speak to me. Family didn't speak to me for years when I got outed. They now do again, which is, I'm grateful for that. But I was disowned for years when I got outed. And that is very tough on our mental health. It discourages us from even trying to seek work and quit, discourages us from trying to build friendships and networks. And so that increases social isolation, sorry. And it renders us living in a lot of fear of social judgment and legal judgment or other repercussions. And that becomes a very tough way to live.
And the second one is misunderstanding and misinformation. Now, obviously, we are living in a world of misinformation. Quite recently in the UK, we've had the riots because of the Southport scabbing. And so, like, social media plays a big impact on misinformation, because a lot of people who are how am I going to word this? A lot of uneducated people, I'd say, read a lot of the misinformation on social media and take it as gospel. Like you've said, you've been called all sorts of names on, Instagram or Twitter or whatever.
Yes, people are awful to each other. That's a new phenomenon. People are very mean online. We know this is because they don't see each other as real humans. I'm 47. In my generation, if you talked like that to somebody's face, you got hurt. So yeah, people are awful online. And yes, in the rush to be the first, we're tribal. People like to be the first one with information. So they'll rush with information that is often not vetted and is false. Like you talked about in the UK stabbings, descriptions of who this awful man was, were all over the place because people rushed with information without making sure it was right. And the worst part is a lot of people don't care if they're telling the truth. They want to troll. They want to lie because it's fun. engagement increases now on like X and Instagram if you just say something incendiary. So people actually don't care if it's true. They purposefully say things that are inflammatory and false because they want the engagement. I personally think that's a real problem. I'm all for free speech, but I think if you purposely lie for engagement, you should be kicked off these platforms. I think that is a massive problem. And like you said, it's destroying our ability to trust what information we're reading. In my world, when we don't talk about the diversity of experiences within my world of millions and millions of people all over the planet, we lead to this monolithic view, doesn't account for our individual agency, doesn't account for our varying circumstances, and nobody listens to us. And then they even make policy without listening to us because they have bad info about our actual lives. So I worry that they don't care, and it's a problem.
Yeah, yes, of course. And criminalisation and legal measures. So we've touched about this on many different occasions. Like we've said that, like you've been taken to court before and, the judge thought you were a piece of rubbish and thought you were nothing, and they didn't take into account that you're more than, you've done more in your life other than sex work. You've done other educational things, but they just see the sex worker and nothing else.
Correct. Yes, we've talked about that, and that leads to policies that are driven by emotion instead of evidence-based harm reduction strategies driven by data. We get so emotional about sex, particularly women having sex, God forbid, even though that's literally how we all got here. Our parents fucked. Relax, people. But that's, yeah, it's people are emotional about sex. So, correct.
So, what one of the things that we can do is sort of give support and guide resources. And now, obviously, we've talked about, the various, outreach services that are out there, charities and things. So, can we talk a bit more about support and resources a bit?
Yeah. So, a lot of the rescue organizations are deeply religious, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everyone has the right to be, but they sort of try to push that on sex workers. And again, they want you to retroactively decide that you were a victim as a sex worker. It was horrible. You need to be you need to talk about Jesus and change your life and stop being such a whore and be a good saintly woman. That's a problem for me. You can want to transition out of sex work and do other things with your life without looking back on it as horrific. I know tens of thousands of retired sex workers that are doing great things in life, business, wives, moms, whatever, lots of different things. And they're fine. They're fine. And that the resistance of some support and resources to see it as a choice, maybe the best choice at the time, and then maybe it no longer serves the sex worker and they want out, is a real problem. Also, support and resources, they need to deal with the problem of a criminal record. If you've been arrested, it's very hard to get work. It's very hard to get housing, because even though it can be only a misdemeanor, not necessarily a felony, not necessarily a high-level crime, it is a sex crime, and people get very uncomfortable about that. So you get pariahed by society. So what I did in California, which took me years, was I helped lobby to help wipe the records of arrested street-based sex workers, because when they want to quit, which many times they want out, they want to do other things, if they have a conviction, they cannot find other work. And so what you need to do is seal and wipe the record. And we did that, and we have many, many cases of women in another chapter of their life having a great job, healthcare, benefits, children, marriage, all the other things they want at a later chapter in life. But what it hinged upon was wiping and that criminal record so that they could get a different type of a job. And we did that. That took me years of fighting with a city called Long Beach, California. I fought with them for years through a friend of mine who's an elected official there. And we got it done. And it has had incredibly positive results.
So another thing, we need to talk about is humour, critique and call for change. So obviously we've discussed about diverse and accurate representations, and that needs to be represented more in the media because, like we've said, everyone has their own circumstances and everyone has their own reasons for working in the sex industry. No one's ever the same. Everyone's unique and different.
Correct. You're exactly right. And that's part of what some of us have been trying to do, is just to show the diversity, more accurate representations of the humanity, to promote understanding. Because I think some of the poor treatment of us simply comes from ignorance. In the same way that people were so much worse to LGBTQ people, in the same way you're trying to humanize differently abled people. It makes it harder to treat people horribly when you know them, right?
Yes, of course. So, and another thing is humorizing narrative. So, one of the things that the media could do is like portray the background, what's going on in their life, of the background, in the sex work. So why she's doing why he or she is doing what they're doing, and taking a more narrative look at that rather than just all glamour and empowerment. And
yes, of course, addressing the root cause of it would help humanize it, and would also help when people are ready to exit, because you'd understand their needs better.
And the last one, education and advocacy. So like we all, we've all seen like educational TV programs, films, in the media, and so like they have a responsibility to educate the wider public. So that needs to be done with sex workers and sex work as well.
Yes, you see some increasingly positive representations of our work without glamorizing it. And I hope that continues. And that when you, as we talked about, when you first shift culture, then you can shift policy, because there's an understanding there. And it'll be for a long time very uncomfortable. I know when I do these podcasts, people are horrified and uncomfortable and don't know what to make of me. And then they slowly start to realize there's millions like me. And so then maybe policy can change. We have a presidential candidate running in this country who has openly said that when it's consenting adults with no coercion, we should really look at decriminalization. And she was a prosecutor. I don't think she can get that done because there's too many people who would oppose it. But to even have somebody for the first time in American history even say that we should even take a look at that is absolutely a step in the right direction. I don't know that she'll win. I'm certain that she can't accomplish decriminalization in any time soon, but it's baby steps in the right direction, the direction toward harm reduction and compassion and general empathy toward your fellow human beings, even if their choices are different from yours.
Oh, well, thank you, Amy, for joining me again on this episode. Thank you, everyone. Tune in next time for episode 8. Thank you.